Mic check 1 2 1 2. Alrighty. Hello world. This is the Know Your Place podcast. I'm Charles Altendorf. On this week's episode, I'm going to talk about sort of odd jobs and things I've noticed across America that people do to make money. And I want to talk about this more like unusual businesses, or sort of what you wouldn't think of as your standard business needed in a town. And I wanted to talk about this because I find it kind of interesting and sort of see these different kinds of places spring up everywhere, and it kind of fascinates me. So this conversation all kind of started when I was talking to my friend Malik, and he basically, he was talking about a sort of side hustle he was going to do to make some money, and he lives in New Zealand actually, and he'll be on next week's episode. But it is interesting to me. So, so yeah, I wanted to go into it. So, when I'm about to turn 30, and I've been working in my career now for 6 years. But I did a lot of stuff to work to make money when I was in college, and right after I got out of college. And one of those jobs was working at a warehouse for eBay that distributed things. Now that I would say a lot of people in America have experienced that kind of job at some point. I'm not really going to harp on that too much, but it's interesting nonetheless because I met people there that did other jobs that I found interesting. Like one of my friends at the factory, he used to be he used to be so we have this thing called Rena Center in America, and I'm not sure, you probably have this in other countries, but I don't know how common it is compared to America. And basically, Rent a Center is somewhere where you can rent to own furniture. So you can't afford to buy the furniture outright. So you go and you take it on loan and you make payments, and eventually you pay off the furniture. I mean, traditionally, this was you could do this at places like Walmart and Kmart back in the day, and I think J.C. Penney and other department stores. But Rena Center sort of made this their primary focus of their business, as opposed to these other businesses let you do it at different times in the year to make more money for themselves. And so my friend, no joke, he was collections for Rena Center. So he he got paid money to go out and try to get people to make their payments on this furniture. And if they didn't do it, he would have to go, beat down their door, maybe bring some people with him and physically remove the furniture. I just found this to be totally absurd that he got paid money to do this. Now, I understand it has to happen if a business like Rent a Center exists, but it's kind of insane to me. I mean, it's out of this world, and there's locations all over America of this company, and there's people all over America that get paid to do this. I can't even believe it. I I'm just, my mind is blown. So yeah, that's a really interesting business to be involved in. And then I was when I was working at one of my jobs where we were working at desk jobs. One of my friends there, I was trying to get him on this week, but he was too busy. He actually got paid money to work at a place that made signs. Now, I understand that every town's got to have somewhere that makes signs, right? Because businesses need signs, but it's not really a traditional thing you think about. Like, nobody goes to school, or nobody comes up through high school saying, "Yeah, I want to be the sign maker guy," or "I want to be part of the sign making operation." Nobody thinks about that. Um, so yeah, he literally worked with these people for a while, and he helped make all these custom nice signs for all these businesses around this town. And it's quite an intensive job, and somebody has to do it. Has to come up with the help them with the artistry, the business with what they want it to look like, and then have to deal with the logistics of, is it going to be lit up? Is it not going to be lit up? What color paints are we going to use? How are we going to? What kind of material are we going to make it out of? And this is quite a labor intensive process, and so much so even that back in the day, there was in Vegas, they have all those neon signs. There's this thing called the Neon Light Museum in Vegas that I really want to see once. And, these things used to be quite the ornate operation. And, it's kind of a crazy art that we don't think about. So, yeah, that's something also I find very interesting that people used to make money, or that people make money doing. And, another thing that's not quite so common that probably more people have heard of, maybe not, that I really found fascinating was I got the chance to go somewhere and see people who do glass blowing. And, that's where you take glass and you heat it up and you use special techniques to bend it and create really ornate glass products. And, that's also a pretty dead art too because it's been so commercialized how to make glassware, but people still want some of this stuff. And, again, it's another sort of thing. You don't go into school thinking somebody can come in and do that, right? Now, another one I wanted to talk about that I knew somebody personally from is my dad's friend. Actually, was a he's a funeral home director, and I find this fascinating as well because yes, I understand every town has to have a funeral home. Well, most towns do, so they can bury the dead, and they have. I don't know how common funeral homes are outside of America. I would assume they're common in Europe too, but it's an art that you don't think about people going into school for to be funeral home directors, and this guy, he's just a normal guy. He was friends with my dad's brother growing up, but he runs a funeral home. I mean, he buries people, and that's just, it's kind of odd to me. It's something I wouldn't imagine as a kid doing. I wouldn't imagine myself as becoming the person that buries people or, makes the services for that, plans it all out. I would never think about that. Um, yeah, so another interesting job that I've met somebody from is, and this one's also kind of a dying art, but it's still needed. Funeral homes is not a dying art. That's just a joke. But another one that's needed is I know somebody who's friends with my grandparents, and his name is Clem, and he lives in Wisconsin, and he is a locksmith. Now, I'm not saying there's not any locksmiths left, but here this guy is. He's a small town locksmith. The town that he's a locksmith in has got like 4,000 people, and you just don't hear about locksmiths anymore. I'm sure there are people you can call. Like I looked it up here in my town, even there are people you can call, but like he said there's a huge gap in the industry. He's having to come back and teach his son, who already started a different career, to do it. And I remember as a kid, nobody ever sat me down and said, "Hey, one of the professions you can get into is making locks for people, or coming and fixing their broken out locks." um, yeah. So there's lots of what I love about America is there's just so many different ways I've noticed people making money. And I think that's part of the American dream, and that's why I want to talk about it here on my episode here. So I just think it's so fascinating what people do to make money. Um, we also have the convenience store environment, which I'm sure everybody has those. Let's see here. I also knew some people who make money by doing the flea market circuit. And this is what was really wild to me because, okay, you have a flea market, right? You think of a flea market as something where, you know, people are just selling the reused stuff or whatever. You don't think of it as like a very lucrative business. But these people I knew, it was a family operation that was several generations, and they were making lots and lots of money, like hand over fist. This guy his family was making so much money he was able to pay his college tuition, and they were just selling all this different stuff resale, or stuff they'd collect and they'd sell it. And this it was just a giant like a mall of sellers right off the interstate. It was called the flea market. And it's just not something they don't tell you that in school. They don't say, hey, you can make money off of reselling things and collecting it in the right way to the right crowd of people, and you can make a lot of money at this. They that's when I was in school, I guess what they would tell you can make money doing is, you go being well, obviously they tell you could professions to tell you be a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, or even police or firefighters, or bankers or insurance agents, or you know people who computer technicians, things like that. They don't tell you about these interesting other ways people make money or side hustles they do that are really cool. And there are people that need to supply this stuff. Well, let's see. So let me think of a couple more here while I round this off. Let's see. There's also well, they do talk about restauranting, and I've talked about that in other episodes. So anyway, yeah, there's lots of different little side hustles that people do to make money. Okay, I've thought of one other one too. Uh, in Also in Kentucky, it's down the road. We have this thing called the Artisan Center where people sell their crafts, and you wouldn't think that would be very lucrative, but some people really want this stuff, And you think about uh, ways people and this stuff has gotten tied into what people do with farmers markets now. It's not just it used to be farmers markets were just like vegetables and stuff, but now they're a whole operation with all different kinds of little knickknacks out and things like that. And it's just so fascinating, when people come in and they think of these alternative ways to sell their stuff to people, and people buy it. And some people, they turn these operations get huge, and it's so mind blowing. So anyway, those are sort of odd jobs and side hustles and ways people make money. Let me know in the comments if you know of any good ones, and stay tuned for the live stream next week. I'm very excited. Thanks.